Country on this Monday morning. You folks on the East Coast, don't worry, just going to be a little dusting. Not really. Could be a dandy. Nor'easter coming in. Snow on the way in the Big Apple. Good to have you with us from Detroit Lakes, Minnesota, and the North Country along the northern tier. This Monday podcast brought to you by Communication Workers of America, Alliance for American Manufacturing, BioGreen Clean, and the iSave team. Eventful weekend in the Midwest. Bunch of crazy talk going on in Iowa as the Republicans gathered to try to out-tap dance one another. In the meantime, the Ed team, yours truly in Nebraska, doing the final round of stories, legal wrangling taking place with the Keystone XL pipeline. Now, what's happening today in Washington, there'll be more Keystone votes and more amendments and everything else. Let me emphatically state, I have never seen a story so missed by the American media. And I'm not trying to pick on my colleagues or anything like that, but just the Senate, what are they voting for? What's the president's not weighing in on Keystone because he doesn't have to. We are now down to, do you own that property, and are you going to allow this multinational oil company to put a pipe on your property? And legally, can they do it? The latest legal volley that has unfolded in the Keystone XL pipeline is going to play out for at least another 2 years, going through the regulatory, the judicial, and the appellate process. The eminent domain lawsuits that are being brought forward in Nebraska by over 100 landowners in York and Holt County will hold this project up beyond the presidency of Barack Obama. But the Republicans are using this as a jobs bullet point against the president, and they're also using it as a vocal pitch to try to sell the country that we don't have any problems when it comes to climate change, and this is a jobs package, and it's Obama's fault that it's not getting done. I'm here to tell you the truth. This is what's coming down. The latest volley here is going to wrangle this up for a couple, maybe 3 years, and it's going to kick it right into the 2016 campaign. Now, Hillary Clinton took a lot of heat from the left last week because she was in Winnipeg and did not weigh in on the Keystone XL project. Look at it this way. Hillary's on their soil in Manitoba and won't support their project. That's how a political hot potato, that's how much of a political hot potato this whole story is. Keystone has become a symbolic fight when it comes to climate change. Not to mention it would bring the dirtiest oil to market in the world. But let's back up a little bit. So I'm in Nebraska this past weekend. I was down there on Saturday. And I'm talking to these landowners who are part of this lawsuit, eminent domain property rights. They're saying that TransCanada cannot bring the pipeline across their land. They have rights. So what is TransCanada doing? Well, they're breaking out the checkbook. They're trying to twist the arms financially of these landowners. And I came across a gentleman named Jim Carlson who says he can't be bought. Listen to this.
The first time they came to my house, they offered me a good sum of money, and I listened to them for a little while, and I knew enough about it that I was not going to sign anything that day. And just before they left, I told them thanks, but it's not enough money, just kind of jokingly, and that wasn't going to sign. I wasn't ready to sign yet.
I mean, I've been told that you were offered $250,000 to allow this pipeline to come over your land. Is that true?
Yes, that was their first offer. The best offer I've got, it amounted to about $307,000.
And you say no to that?
Yes.
Can you be bought?
No, because my land is worth more to me and my family than any amount of money they could offer me, or would offer me, I should say that.
Voices from the middle of the country that you hear ringing hollow in Washington. these are the folks, these 100 landowners in 2 counties in Nebraska that are saying no to the Keystone XL pipeline. And so what are your lawmakers doing? Your senators are wasting taxpayer dollars by spending 1 minute on this. They don't have the foresight. Number one, I don't think they understand the story. They haven't researched it. All they're doing is repeating what everybody else is saying. And so it's broken out to this big amendment fight in the United States Senate instead of really working on projects that could help the economy today. I find it utterly amazing. We'll have full coverage of this tonight on the Ed Show on MSNBC. There's a lot more landowners that have a lot to say that we'll bring you tonight on MSNBC on the Ed Show, 5 o'clock Eastern. Now, while that's pretty sane conversation, the crazy talk was taking place over in Iowa. None other than produced by the gem herself, the wizard from the library, Sarah Palin. Now, Sarah Palin has been probably one of the biggest critics of the President of the United States when it comes to public speaking, always working over the president for using a teleprompter. In fact, President Obama has been so solid when it comes to performing and saying exactly what he thinks and believes in front of a crowd. They've tried to reverse that and try to make the people think that all he ever does is do it off a teleprompter. And when the teleprompter breaks, he doesn't know what to say, which is hogwash. This president is more grounded. He knows who he is, probably as good as anybody. But what about Sarah Palin? How does she handle it when the teleprompter doesn't work? So she's an invited guest to speak at the Iowa Freedom Summit. And she's on a roll. And then all of a sudden, somebody hit the off button or it started going in reverse. And she is now being criticized by her own people in conservative circles about being incoherent. Now, this isn't coming from liberals because there aren't any liberals there. Byron York, who is a right-wing journalist, tweeted out how incoherent she was. Here it is. Here's what happens when the teleprompter doesn't work, folks.
It must change. Things must change for this our government. Look at it. It isn't too big to fail. It's too big to succeed. It's too big to succeed so we can afford no retreads or nothing will change with the same people and same policies that got us into the status quo. Another Latin word, status quo. And it stands for, man, the middle class, everyday Americans are really getting taken for a ride. That's status quo. And GOP leaders, by the way, the man can only ride you when your back is bent. So strengthen it. Then the man can't ride you. America won't be taken for a ride because so much is at stake. And we can't afford politicians playing games like nothing more is at stake than, maybe just the next standing of theirs in the next election.
What is she talking about? You got to see the video. You got to check it out, folks. It is priceless. Sarah Palin on a roll off the top of her head. You know, when you go off the top of your head, it quickly jumps into you. Do you know who you are and what you're saying and what you really think? And can you communicate that? She's a lightweight, as said by her own critics at the Iowa Freedom Summit. Now, who did fare well was Scott Walker. He starts out with cut one on the big list, reminding folks.
And I think people like the direction they're headed. Maybe that's why I've won the race for governor 3 times in the last 4 years.
Well, that's a line that was used on the Ed Show profoundly the night that he won again re-election. Walker went on to say this.
Since I've been governor, we passed pro-life legislation, and we've defunded Planned Parenthood. Since I've been governor, we pulled back on excessive government regulation and on small businesses and family farmers. In fact, I like to say we now enforce common sense instead of bureaucratic red tape, and we've taken it beyond regulations. We passed some of the most aggressive lawsuit reforms so that farmers and small businesses and others don't have to deal with frivolous lawsuits. We've enacted legislation that allows for concealed carry and castle doctrine so that law-abiding citizens in our state can stand up and defend themselves and their family and their properties. And we believe it's important to protect the integrity of each and every vote cast. So we require in our state by law a photo ID to vote.
I mean, folks, it's textbook conservative stuff. And from the reports that I'm hearing is that Walker outshined the lot. For more on this, let's go to Ruth Conniff, editor, Progressive Magazine. Ruth, always a pleasure. Good to have you with us.
Great to be here, Ed.
Did they embrace his go big and go bold attitude at this Freedom Conference?
Yeah, I mean, Walker, judging from all reports, was the star of the show there. He did himself the most good of any candidate that appeared, and he got more applause. That teleprompter joke that Sarah Palin told to her own detriment, Walker had that in mind. He walked around the stage with his shirt sleeves rolled up, showing that he doesn't use a teleprompter, because in the funny world of conservative media, that's an important thing because they accuse Obama of it all the time. He hit all of these notes, and his applause lines, I thought what was so notable about it, from the perspective of somebody who lives in Wisconsin, is that he was playing up exactly what he plays down at home. When he talks about defunding Planned Parenthood, that is one of the most dramatic things that Walker has done. He comes right out of the far-right anti-abortion movement. They built his political career, and he has really delivered with some of the most aggressive anti-birth control as well as anti-abortion legislation in our state. And clinics that served women were their primary health care providers all over the state of Wisconsin have closed down because of Walker. He did not run on that because it's not a great way to run in a statewide election where you're talking to more than the people who show up for Freak Fest in Iowa. So very interesting to hear him play that up. The other thing he played up that he does not play up at home is thanking people for pouring outside money into his re-election campaign here and into the recall election. I mean, this was very explicitly not what he was saying to people in Wisconsin. He was trying to say he was running in Wisconsin as a Wisconsin candidate. Here he goes to Iowa, and he says, it was all these big donors outside. And, he said an event sponsored by Citizens United to say, thanks, guys. Thanks for bankrolling me so that I could stay in office in Wisconsin. So I thought those were really interesting points he hit.
It's almost as if he knows exactly what the Kochs want, and he's going to play to their playbook as best he can. What do you think?
That's right, and what makes him so dangerous is that he can show up at this event, as Mitt Romney and Jeb Bush chose not to. He can play to the base, and he can really play up those positions, but he is also able to position himself as sort of this reasonable, more centrist candidate, and that is the formula for success for a Republican candidate, to appeal to the base, but somehow to be able to cross over and appear like a mainstream guy. And he's done that by concealing these very positions that he was touting when he was in Iowa. So I think that's what really makes him a threat.
Now, in Southern California over the weekend, you had Marco Rubio, Ted Cruz, and Rand Paul doing a dog and pony show debate in front of the Kochs in a closed audience. Yet, of course, Walker wasn't there. He's been there other times. It's almost like they're going through a vetting process here and a process of elimination. This is Ted Cruz, cut 7 on the list, talking about returning America to prosperity.
What we're working to do is to bring together that same coalition of men and women across Iowa, across this country, to say we do not accept losing this country. We will together reignite the miracle of America. We will together bring back that shining city on a hill that is the United States of America.
He may be the best presenter of them all, but whether he's going to make it or not remains to be seen. How did Huckabee do in Iowa, Ruth? I mean,
Huckabee is just a perennial figure. He will surface and resurface at this level as the primary guy, and I just think that people have sort of gotten used to that formula. He's hitting these social conservative notes. It's not actually what the Koch brothers care about the most. They like to stir up the base, but they're about making money and they're about concentrating wealth. So Huckabee can come and talk about Beyonce, and that can get a lot of news. And in a way, I think it's a dog whistle. I think that a lot of what's interesting about the Republican Party and where it's at is that so much of what they're doing is appealing in a low-key way to racism, and I think that that's what that Beyonce discussion that Huckabee opened was all about, talking about the Obama daughters. Why are they even a subject, Yeah. I think it's a way of pushing cultural buttons and getting people riled up, and I don't think it's not going to make him the candidate, but it shows you who their coalition is and who they're talking to and what they're tapping into.
And finally, back to Wisconsin for just a moment. Walker wants to drug test food stamp recipients. What's the legal hurdle here, and does he have support to do this in the state of Wisconsin?
Well, it's an ugly thing. I mean, talk about tapping into the worst in people. It does poll reasonably well because it's part of this narrative that somehow poor people are criminals and on drugs and that they should pass a drug test in order to be able to eat. And that's been really characteristic of a lot of Walker's policies. But, I certainly hope that it doesn't pass legal muster. It's a grotesque violation of people's basic rights. And it's, we're talking about food here. We're talking about people's ability to eat. And I think they should be drug testing the guys who are in the Capitol building right now trying to ram these kinds of policies down our throats. It certainly doesn't save the state money, boost the economy, or do anything really other than just try to make people who are already suffering a little bit more miserable and a little bit more under the control of this hostile government.
Ruth Conniff, always a pleasure. Good to have you with us on the Ed Schultz Internet broadcast. We'll do it again. Thank you.
Great.
Ruth Conniff, editor of the Progressive Magazine. Now this. It really doesn't matter what time of year it is. You got to clean stuff in the house, in the garage, just general cleaning. If you're going to use something, you might as well use the absolute best. I use BioGreen Clean, and I recommend it to everybody. You got a cleaning job to do? This is what you want to use. BioGreen Clean. It's from the earth. It's plant-derived. You can use it year-round on everything. The garage, the kitchen, bathroom, floor, rugs, walls, general cleaning. It does it. Pet stains, you name it. Listen to Candy.
I was cleaning my oven. You normally have to take the shelves out, and they were really disgusting, just like the bottom of the oven was. And I normally would have to scrub them with steel wool and all sorts of stuff to get the stuff off. But I didn't have time, so I just put them in the sink, filled it up with water, and I put in some BioGreen Clean, and came back later and saw all this stuff floating in the water and realized that it had cleaned it all by itself, and all I had to do was take a rag and wipe it down. And I was like, oh, my God, this was the easiest thing. My oven looks like it's brand new again.
That's how strong it is. And you know what? It's effective, and you wouldn't believe what it does to petroleum products like grease or oil or any kind of gas, and it leaves no odor. It's amazing. BioGreen Clean is from the earth. It's plant-derived. It's 100% American, 100% effective, and truly eco-friendly. 100% satisfaction guarantee to your money back. Order today. Go to my website at wegoted.com and order, or go to biogreenclean.com. That's BIOGREENCLEAN.com. They'll have a demonstration right there on the website. I'm showing you just how effective and how good it is. Order today. BioGreen Clean. It's time to continue our conversation about mechanical insulation. Mechanical insulation is for the piping systems in our nation's commercial and industrial facilities. Facility owners are burning up billions of dollars through the lack of mechanical insulation on these piping systems. One uninsulated steam valve will cost you 1 barrel of oil in heat loss per year. The average hospital has hundreds of these steam valves. The insulation on the valve pays for itself in less than a year. Adding the necessary insulation to the piping for a steam line is paid back in just 12 to 14 months. America, what are you thinking? We're wasting billions. Take the walk through your plant and look at the piping systems. Call the iSave team. Insulation saves America valuable energy, and this team of energy conservation specialists is shovel-ready to save you money. Visit iSaveTeam.org and call their toll-free number to have a specialist give your plant an energy audit. That's iSaveTeam.org.
Subscribe to the Ed Schultz podcast today. Simply log on to iTunes, search for Ed Schultz, and click the subscribe button to have the show delivered to your preferred listening device daily, free of charge. Rate and review the podcast and tell us how we're doing. More details at wegoted.com.
Communication Workers of America bring you this broadcast. CWA building a mass movement to restore workers' bargaining rights and reclaim our democracy. They got a great website. Find out all about their activities at cwa-union.org. Alliance for American Manufacturing, CWA, BioGreen Clean, and the iSave team bring you this Monday through Friday. We do it up at noon, Monday through Friday. Now, I was just talking to you about the Koch brothers and their private showing. You know what I view this as? Them bringing in political aspirations of people, bringing in candidates like they did Rubio, Cruz, and Rand Paul over the weekend. This is almost like the NFL scouting combine. It's not open to the public. The NFL teams get together, they bring in the best prospects, and they evaluate them, and they pick. I mean, what's the difference? This is like a political draft here. So Marco Rubio, who's making moves to run for president, he's out there in front of the Kochs, in front of a closed audience. Ted Cruz is there, and Rand Paul is there. So I don't know who's going to be in round 2 of the combine, the political combine being put on by the Koch brothers. But Bob Ingle, longtime author and columnist for Gannett Media newspapers in New Jersey, was on the scene in Southern California. He joins us. Mr. Ingle, good to have you with us here on the Ed Schultz Internet broadcast.
Always good to be with you, Ed.
Tell me about your trip this weekend. What'd you see? What was the mission?
Well, while Christie was up in Iowa, I figured that I would go the other direction and go down to California. So I got out there, and I knew they're not too friendly toward the media, so I dressed up like what I thought a wealthy Republican would do, and went in to see if I could watch from the inside. But no, they had guards at every place you could possibly think of, even to the back roads and the golf course and all of that. It didn't work. They had private security guards. They had police. They had everything, man. It was just locked down solid. So it was somewhat of a fortress atmosphere. Absolutely. I mean, it was almost frightening. And in the lengths that they went to try to keep this thing secret from the American public, when what they're doing is as you just said, they're auditioning people who they think could be president. Who did get in, to your knowledge? To your knowledge, who did get in? Was it a personal invite? Yeah. Oh, yeah. Invitation only. They rented out the whole thing. That's how they did this. I couldn't have gotten in during that period of time, even if I could have afforded it. And the way the place is set up, you have to go up a steep hill, and it's very easy to lock down if that's what you want to do. But they certainly did a good job of keeping everybody away. Mm-hmm. Now, did you get any pictures? Nothing of substantial, because if you were, standing around, they wanted to know what you were doing there, that sort of thing. So I just made a couple of passes through, pretended that I was a birder at one point, and all that kind of stuff, but nothing really good, unfortunately. There were Saturday morning about 12 demonstrators who were down at the bottom of the hill with signs that said, Koch brothers go home and that sort of thing. Yeah. Now, did they figure out that you're a journalist? I think they probably knew that I really wasn't a birder dressed as I was. I don't know that mattered that much to them, whether I was a journalist or not. If you weren't supposed to be there, if you weren't on the A-list, they didn't want you there. This is Chris Christie, your governor, and I say your governor because you work out of New Jersey. We're visiting with Bob Ingle, who's the author of Chris Christie, The Inside Story of His Rise to Power and the Soprano State, New Jersey's Culture of Corruption. This is Governor Christie at the Freedom Summit in Iowa over the weekend. I will not be willingly a part of a generation that makes John Adams repent in heaven for having made the sacrifices that he and our founding fathers made for the liberty we enjoy and the freedom we live under today. And I am here today because I do not believe
that any of the patriots in this room want to be a part of the generation that turns over to our children a lesser, smaller America than the one that was given to us. It is time for us to stand up and fight together for the country that we were given, for the country we believe in, for the country the world needs, and for the country I want my children and your children to have. If you are willing to fight with me, I will always stand with you and fight with you and tell you the truth. God bless this country, and God bless all of you.
Now that is, for me anyway, unusual audio being produced by the governor of New Jersey, because normally we're hearing him tell people just to shut up. But what did you make of that? I mean, that's a full-throated pitch. I want to be your guy.
My read on that, Ed, is exactly what yours was. This is an unusual group for him, and that the King's party there tends to be to the far right, which gives him, Christie, a disadvantage. And that's what he was doing. He was trying to suck up to the far right, no doubt about it. And because they don't particularly like him, they think he's too moderate. But that was what was going on, though. He didn't, incidentally, they were polite to him, and he got applause, but nothing like the Sarah Palins and the Huckabees in that crowd.
Yeah. This is a montage of the attendees taking shots at Mitt Romney and Jeb Bush for not being there.
Looks like you might be running against Mitt Romney again in Iowa.
Groundhog Day, right?
I can give you a little bit of news about Mitt. Most of you know he and Jeb had a private meeting in Utah that was so private it was on the front page of the New York Times.
Mitt Romney.
A loser. He lost. He should have won. He should have won. He choked.
Jeb Bush.
The last thing we need is another Bush.
That's Donald Trump, the final voice there. I tweeted out this weekend, I'm so sick and tired of the I might run for president story of Donald Trump. Buddy, you're either in or you're out. I mean, he's just all about promotion. I don't know why the media bites on this story so often that he's thinking about running.
I'm with you, Ed. Every time you say that, I'm absolutely with you. We should just ignore him because, he's always promoting something for himself and making it look like it was something else. One of the lines from Christie I found very interesting is they ask him, do you think you could carry Iowa? And he says, well, if I couldn't, they wouldn't keep inviting me out here. Now, when you know how things really work, and that is he's always campaigning to get invited out there.
Yeah, no, he is.
Absolutely nothing.
The guy's got a primetime television show. Of course he's trying to stay as visible as he can. He might as well use this.
You're right.
And that's really what it boils down to. What are some of the hurdles that Christie would have as you see the field right now?
Well, right now, getting through that primary is going to be difficult for him, which is why he was out in Iowa saying those kind of things that sounded unusual to me and you for him. The primary just tends to be loaded with the far-right people, and when you look at Christie's record, he just isn't far-right. That's just not who Chris Christie is. So I think that's going to be difficult. The other thing's going to be difficult is he apparently, with his new PAC that he just launched, is going to have a America Needs Leadership theme. Well, the people of New Jersey are not too hot on his leadership. He has some of the lowest ratings now that he's had since he has been in office. They think that he ought to stay at home and tend to New Jersey's problems as a leader rather than go gallivanting around the country. So when it comes down to that, I don't think Chris Christie could even carry New Jersey.
Well, Christie deserves, I think, some credit heading up the Republican Governors Association. It was a good November for the Republicans, as expected, no question about it.
Right. Yep.
But why have his ratings plummeted? And this is just my take. Bridgegate is one thing, but I think the guy is so abrasive, he turns people off. He just doesn't know how to win over people and influence people. He's such a bully, and people don't want to bully. Well, I may be wrong on that. Your thoughts?
Well, no, I think you're right. It worked for a while. He was different. He went out and he yelled and he screamed at people, and some of them occasionally deserved it. But he just kept on doing it because it worked. That was his thing. And now people, okay, we've heard that now, get on and tell us something that we want to hear, what you're going to do. I think people in New Jersey especially are tired of hearing about it because we just keep having problems grow in New Jersey that he's not doing anything about, and it's a sore point with so many New Jerseyans that he's on the road all the time running for president, and sometimes he takes positions that are 180 degrees from what the people of New Jersey want. So it's not looking really, really good for him.
Bob Ingle, finally, what is it about Bridgegate? Has he escaped that? Is that behind him?
I have never believed, Ed, that he planned it or he knew about it. The real question is, when did he find out about it and what did he do? But let's just say when the U.S. attorney gets through, he didn't know about it in advance and he had no hand in it. The darn road was closed down for a while. And apparently the people who are involved are people that he put in power. So the question is going to be, is that the kind of people you would have in the White House if you were elected president that go off and do crazy things like that? So he's going to get nailed anyway, even if he didn't have a hand in it originally.
Bob Ingle, always a pleasure. Good to have you with us. Thanks so much. He's the author of Christie, The Inside Story of His Rise to Power and the Soprano State, New Jersey's Culture of Corruption. This is the Ed Schultz Internet Broadcast, The Ed Show, tonight on MSNBC. You can follow me on Twitter at WeGotEd and at Ed Show. More from Nebraska, the true story of the Keystone XL pipeline tonight on The Ed Show. You can get this podcast at WeGotEd.com, RawStory.com, RingOfFireRadio.com, and search my name on iTunes and have it sent to your personal listening device. Communication Workers of America, Alliance for American Manufacturing, BioGreen Clean, and the iSave team bring you this broadcast. We're back tomorrow.